are the commissions actually bigger for commercial than for residential?
I had an idea, but I didn't know the risks that I was taking.
So you want to invest in real estate, but you're not sure which direction you should go. Well, let's go over the top 5 advantages and risks of investing in, let's say, mid to large commercial properties. Eric.
Yes.
Are there bigger payouts in commercial?
It depends. I would say yes. I mean, I love commercial. That's what I focus on.
Right.
Commercial, you can manipulate things without actually having to manipulate them. Residential properties, if you're going to add on to a house, then yeah, you've just made that house bigger, so you can sell for more money. Commercial, you can buy something for a small amount of money, change the use of it, change the rental income, and now all of a sudden it's worth 10 times more money, and you didn't have to actually build anything.
Or you do the added value. You're all about the added value.
Yeah, it's literally, you're just changing what you have. It's just so much.
But
so
are
much
the
easier,
commissions actually bigger for commercial than for residential?
So there's bigger properties. I think it's easier to get more opportunities with commercial. It depends on what part of the country you're in.
What's the largest commission that you've ever gotten?
The largest commission, I'd say, is about $600,000.
And was that commercial or residential?
Commercial.
There we go. Yeah, it's big. That's big.
I thought it was a nice number.
That's a nice number.
I wish it was every week, but it's not.
So talk to me about the leases.
Okay.
The leases are longer, but what does that mean for someone? So if someone, what does that mean?
When you have a lease for a commercial space, if you're talking about residential versus commercial, most commercial leases could go for 5 years as a starting point. Some people do 10, 15, 20 years.
Wow.
So there's less turnover. In residential, most people rent a house or an apartment for a year, sometimes 2 years. So there's more work in the residential side because you're constantly reoccurring. So let's say you have 20 apartments in a building. Those people are usually turning over.
Right.
In the higher end stuff they are. Maybe if you're in a more economically affordable area with lower priced units, people may stay there for a longer period of time. But in the higher priced stuff, people turn over because they move.
Yeah.
Right? With commercial, I have one building. I have a restaurant tenant that's been there for 13 years.
Wow.
So I put them in 13 years ago. And I haven't had to do anything since.
And it's just,
awesome.
It's money coming in without the work of having to re-up them or find new tenants.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
That makes sense.
Downtime,
Longer
just keeps
leases.
going, and the longer they're there, you keep raising the rent.
So, is it easier to diversify what you have with commercial?
Well,
so your portfolio
has different types of products. Sure, you could own a piece of land for parking and get money off that. You could build a building. You could have a mixed-use property which has some retail and some office in it. You could have another version of a mixed-use property that has retail with apartments. So there's diversity with the types of commercial stuff you can own. So sure. So like today, everybody's afraid of the office market, so people aren't buying office product, because since the pandemic, everybody's working from home. So yeah, there's a lot of diversification options.
So meaning that if you're in commercial, you just don't have to, it doesn't mean just one thing. There's a myriad of things you could do.
There's a ton of different opportunities. You could be, since the pandemic, the warehouse market is huge because everybody's shopping at Amazon, right?
Ah.
So when the economy's good and everybody's buying those packages, they're coming from a warehouse.
Right.
So you can't get warehouse space anymore because it's all taken. So that's a great thing to own right now is warehouse.
What about appreciation? Explain to me why commercial is good for appreciation, and explain to me what appreciation is.
Well, appreciation is typically when the value of something goes up. So over time, your house could appreciate. If you bought it in 2000 and you paid $100,000, maybe today it's worth $500,000. So that's appreciation.
But why would appreciation be stronger with commercial than residential?
So it could go in either direction. What I like about the commercial is it's really about your rent. So if your rents go and the rental market in a good economy, rents keep getting higher and higher and higher. So as the rents go up, your building appreciates from that. So it's just, I think there's more appreciation opportunities there. You're not so much subject to housing trends.
Got it.
But
Well,
there's a lot. There's examples that you could argue in all different directions.
do you have any other reason why you would pick commercial over residential?
I don't like to be bothered at 3 o'clock in the morning with some tenant who can't get in with they're drunk and they lost their keys, right? So that doesn't really happen as much.
Or there's a leak dripping on their bed.
Yeah,
Like
so-
you have to take care of that.
But where that changes is when I have a 25 unit apartment building, right? So the difference is when you have a couple apartment buildings, you have a super. You have someone that will handle those calls for you. Okay, so when you're just starting out and you have 2 or 3 apartments, you're the one that has to get up at 3 in the morning to help them deal with it.
Right.
So the bigger you scale, then you put in layers to keep yourself at the beach relaxing and making money.
Now, that sounds amazing, but there must be some risks as well, or some downside. And talk to us about how much money do you need to get started in commercial versus residential?
There's all types of products that you can purchase out there. So you can buy smaller commercial buildings. The first commercial building I bought, this was a long time ago, but I put down like $200,000. So,
But that's a lot.
There's other buildings out there that if they're in bad shape and you're handy and you can fix it or know how to fix something, and you could buy a commercial building with $50,000 or $100,000 down.
But you cannot do a commercial building with like an FHA loan and do house hacking and put 3% down.
That stuff. So it's a different type of loan product. There's benefits to that though, because in commercial, the lenders give you money based on who your tenants are. Right? So you can actually, if you have credit that's not the greatest or you don't have a ton of money, if you have a building with great tenants, banks will sometimes give you the loan.
But how do they know if your tenants are great?
Because you show them the leases and they look at the history of who's been there and who they are.
Payment history, things like that.
Right. So it's actually sometimes easier to buy a commercial building than it is a residential building. The negatives would be if the building's empty. Most banks don't want to lend you on a property that's empty. So what they do then is they actually look at you as a person and they're like, okay, Eric Anderson has $500,000 in the bank and he wants a $200,000 loan. Okay, we'll approve that. Right? So they're looking at you. If the building's empty, they're not looking at you as much. They're looking at, oh, wow, so he's buying a $2 million building, okay, but it has 6 tenants in it. Those 6 tenants are what's going to pay the mortgage, so we're going to give him the mortgage.
So he's good to have it.
Right, versus when that building is empty, they're going to look at what Eric's income is, and they're going to say, well, Eric really doesn't make enough money to afford this mortgage.
Got it.
There's lots of advantages to commercial stuff.
So if you buy a property, do you need to get a property manager for that property?
No, you can do it yourself.
But if it's commercial building and you have...
Still, you can do it yourself.
You can
'Cause
still do it
remember,
yourself.
there's less work in commercial once you get it set.
Okay.
Wasn't that there was like an infomercial for like a hairdryer or something? It's like set it and
forget it.
I don't know, like for curlers or whatever. Same thing with commercial.
Okay.
If you have a good building and you put good tenants in there, you set it and you just forget it and you just check in and you make sure that the people are paying, make sure your rents are coming in and your increases, and make sure your leases don't expire, and that's it.
Let's talk about the 1-tenant commercial buildings. That seems like a risk.
So I guess I have a lot of luck in my life.
Yeah, you were lucky.
Yeah.
You were lucky. I don't think everyone turns out like that. But tell the story. Go ahead.
So I actually, early on in my first commercial building was a single tenant building. All right, so
everyone understands, right? If you have a single tenant, then they go. What happens?
Right. So with your single tenant, you're either all empty
or all full.
Or you're all full. But it's not only, remember, you probably have a mortgage here. So it's not only that you're all empty, you're negative empty. Okay.
Right.
Because that mortgage, right? If that mortgage is $5,000, okay, and now you're empty, you have to take $5,000 out of your pocket.
Right.
So you're negative empty.
Because before, maybe you were making $2,000 to $5,000 off of it.
So
right.
the pendulum doesn't stop at zero.
Right.
It goes into the negative. So I bought a very large, for me, it was like an 8,000 square foot commercial building with 1 tenant. And
you were so young back then.
I was very young, and I actually got lucky because I had a lot of problems with the tenant. And I was able to, within 2 years, I was able to sell that building to my neighbor for $1 million profit.
Yeah, but did you have to go 2 2 years since they left, so you had
no,
to
no,
cover
no,
it.
no.
Oh, okay, okay.
I was smart. I saw the writing on the wall with the
Got it.
tenant, and I was struggling, and because I was still young and I didn't have a lot of money. We were eating a lot of Burger King and paying for gas with quarters, as my wife tells me, and still reminds me to this day about how she used to pay for gas with quarters.
At least you had those quarters.
Yeah, we had the quarters.
You
That's
had the
true.
quarters.
Yeah, but so single tenant buildings, they just really open you up for chaos. They open you up for lots of drama, and they can ruin you. So I had no idea what I was doing. I had an idea, but I didn't know the risks that I was taking. Now, I'm a big proponent of taking risks, especially when you're young, you have no kids, maybe you're not married, maybe you're just getting married. Like, those are the times to take risks, okay? So I actually did it again. And
You did it again.
I bought another single tenant
It's because
building.
you didn't get pounded on that. Like,
It's
if
because I
that
was
had
still
whooped your
stupid.
butt, then
Yes,
you
I
wouldn't
was
have done
still
it.
stupid, and I wasn't smart enough to recognize the risk that I took. Okay, so
You're like,
this
oh, it just
time,
works
I
out.
bought another single tenant building, literally because I did it. I did it right after I sold the one.
Okay.
I bought a couple, but one of them was a big single tenant building, and I had problems again with that tenant a year later. Okay?
Did you
But
sell it,
again,
or what happened?
I sold that and I made $600,000. So I did really well financially with single tenant buildings with a flip.
Okay.
But as a portfolio owning them, it's
No.
very dangerous, and I would not do that today ever again. I like to have stuff that has multiple tenants in it. I'm just not into it. Now, maybe if I was a billionaire, I'd be like, okay, who cares? I'm
Right,
going to buy
because
these
it doesn't matter if it goes
60,000
negative.
square foot warehouses.
Right.
It's just, then you don't care. It comes to a point where you have enough money where it doesn't matter. But for me, it's not about the money anymore. It's just about, I don't want that risk. I don't need it. I like to have multiple tenants. So for new people and people just starting, stay away from single tenant product.
Got it.
Okay. Unless you know that your intention is to flip it, but then just understand what your risks are.
It might take you a while to sell it,
And-
which
yeah.
brings us to what I think is a hard part about real estate investing in general, but especially commercial real estate, liquidity. That's a risk with commercial because it's harder to sell a commercial building than it is to sell a single family home.
Yes. Well, yes, in most cases, yeah, sure.
So
there's market
liquidity
changes,
meaning
but
if
yes.
you need the cold hard cash in your hand.
So in theory, you can buy a stock and sell it tomorrow, right? Nobody
Right.
knows what that price is going to be.
Well,
But with real
yeah.
estate, you can't always do that.
Right.
So when you buy a commercial property, if the market changes or if the town changes or if the zoning, what you're allowed to do in that property changes, you could be stuck owning a building for a bit.
So how do you get the cash in hand? Let's say you need it.
It's called a equity.
Someone's going to come
It's
break
a
your legs. You
refinance.
need it.
Yeah. Again, banks only rent to you based on what your commercial tenants are. So there's formulas. You can usually get 70% of whatever the appraised value is.
Got it.
And that fluctuates based on the market and based on the product. So an office building today, they'll loan you less on because there's so much risk. Whereas a warehouse, they may loan you more, or a 20-unit building, they may loan you more.
Got it.
But yeah, there's a risk there, and that's why you have to start smaller and just work your way up to projects.
I want to be able to have the money in hand like tomorrow, move it over online.
You could get a line of credit.
You could get a line of credit.
If
That's
you're
true.
in a good financial position, you get a line of credit on the building you just bought, or you just have to trust yourself, buy it, improve it. There's a new appraised value, and pull your money out, and now you have that money, and just don't go spend it. Just put it in the bank, and then when you need it, it's there.
Last thing. Let's talk about larger buildings with larger maintenance costs. This is a risk. With commercial, you're going to have a larger building, and won't maintenance be more money or more work or more?
It depends on who takes care of it, whether it's the tenant or the landlord. So yes.
So why would it be the tenant? Explain.
So if you're doing a triple net lease like a warehouse and you're renting that whole project to that company, they may take care of everything, the taxes, the landscaping, any
That's
kind
the
of
way to
maintenance.
do it.
That's the way to do it. But if you have a 20-unit building, okay, you have to take care of the common hallways. You have to take care of the parking. You have to take care of all those things. But, so that's where a lot of developers question what they buy. So when you're in a luxury building, you might have a doorman.
Right.
You may have a rooftop with a pool. You may have a gym, right? Whereas if you're doing a a lower end rental number building, you may not have any of those amenities. It may
Right.
just be a building. There's no amenities at all. So all of these things cost money, require services. You have to know what you're getting into.
I love it.
Yeah.
So we are proponents for commercial real estate because you love commercial real estate. However, there's some really great rewards. There's some great things that go with it, but there are some risks.
Yes.
Even though every risk you turned into a reward, but still fine.
Yeah. So far I've been good. I love real estate. I love it all.
Okay, well, this is a whole section in our book, Real Estate Investing Made Simple,
Yes.
sold wherever books are sold. Thanks for watching this episode. Now don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and we'll see you next time.